Joshua Jackson is a well-loved TV and film star who became a heartthrob 20 years ago on the teen smash Dawson's Creek and has remained a fan favorite ever since, thanks to a healthy resume that includes the current sexy Showtime hit The Affair. But the charming leading man is now living his best life, fulfilling a longtime dream of Broadway by starring in Children of a Lesser God, opposite deaf newcomer Lauren Ridloff. Hear how theater saved the young actor after his run as Pacey Witter ended, his advice for today's young Hollywood, and what it's like to have a leading lady who never leaves his eye on this week's Show People. Joshua Jackson, thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome to Broadway.
Thank you.
You've wanted someone to say welcome to Broadway to you for a long time,
for
right?
a long, long time, yeah.
This is a dream.
It's a dream, and to do it with something like this, which is so demanding but so rewarding, and the response that we've had so far has been really warm. It has been, yeah, just a dream.
You refer to Children of a Lesser God as your happy place, often on social media.
Yeah.
It's your happy place. That's
It is,
what it is.
yeah. I mean, the experience of doing a play is such a joyful thing. And it's not the place that I spend the bulk of my work life. So when I do get the opportunity to come and do it, it's usually because of something really specific that I want to be a part of, a story that I want to tell. And you know, to walk up to work every day and walk into a Broadway stage is a pretty magical feeling for an actor. So it is my happy place. And it just so happens that the environment that they've created for me to work in is also beautiful. And I have this collection of actors, particularly with Lauren, just this connection that is really unusual. And frankly, having never worked with a deaf actor before, one of the things that I've learned, when we got into the rehearsal process, after a couple of days, I was like, something's discomfiting about this. And I realized it's because, oh, she never ever leaves my eyes. It's something that you're always trying to search for when you're an actor, particularly on stage, like just find the two eyes. But she's always there with me. There's like this rope tied between the two of us when we're on stage together. And that bond is a joy to experience every night.
Children of a Lesser God. I remember when the play first premiered on Broadway when I was a kid. It was a big sensation. I've actually been surprised that it hasn't come back to Broadway sooner.
I mean, yeah, it should.
Yeah, and when I heard you guys were doing it up in the Berkshires, I was like, oh,
right,
yes.
of course that should, yeah. So, I mean, I think partially it's because there's just not a lot of representation inside of the deaf community on stage. Partially, it's because the Sarah role is iconic and really complicated, and because of the lack of representation, there's not a gigantic talent pool to draw from. And so, yeah, I mean, it's almost a dance that happens every night with her. It's just a magical thing to watch. So, yeah, I'm glad I'm part of the team that gets to bring it back.
So how did that happen? I know your director, Kenny Leon, the very talented Kenny Leon. I'm reading his memoirs right now. I mean,
he's a phenomenal man as well as a phenomenal director, yeah.
He directed you 2 years ago off Broadway.
Correct.
In Smart People. How did that lead to Children of a Lesser God?
Well, the conversation about this started there, and he had told me that this is something that he had been wanting to do for several years, and I really loved the experience of working with him on Smart People. We, sort of nebulously started the conversation, but there wasn't anything real or tangible about it yet. And so flash forward, that was in February of 2 years ago, so November of 2 years ago, he was putting together a read-through and had assembled a bunch of people and called me up and he wanted me to do it. No commitment at that point, and had said, look, I found everybody else, I think, but I haven't found my leading lady. But I do have this woman that has been teaching me ASL, who for the purposes of the read-through I think would be amazing. And of course, that's Lauren. And she comes in and we're going through day one, the rehearsal day, and we get to the climactic scene in the play where the Sarah character uses her voice. And she says through her interpreter, I haven't spoken out loud since I was 13 years old, so 20 some odd years.
Wow.
And exactly, every hearing person in the room, no matter what conversation they were in, goes, I'm sorry, what? Because it's an inconceivable thing for us.
Yeah.
And she said, because I haven't used my voice, I'm not sure how it'll hold up 2 days in a row. Do you mind if I just wait until tomorrow to use it when we have people in the room? And he, of course, said yes. So flash forward the next day, we're going through. The play works. I mean, Mark is a brilliant writer, and it's an excellent piece of text.
Yeah.
And so the room is warm where it's supposed to be warm, and the comedy is landing, and the heaviness is landing. We finally get to that scene. And we who had been in the rehearsal room the day before all knew that this was coming. So there's this like electricity, frankly, building. And then when she let it go, it was a nearly indescribable obviously indescribable, a nearly indescribable but kind of primal experience.
Wow.
Because it wasn't so much about the sound, and she definitely hadn't tried to make consonants or vowels for a long time. Really, it was just this raw emotional outpouring, and I completely came unglued. Everybody who could hear in the room, frankly. I looked up, Kenny was beside himself, Hal was beside himself, and it was just one of those moments that can only happen in a live space. And I walked out of that room, and Kenny and I went to go get a drink afterwards, and I was like, man, if she can do that, like, that's the whole thing right there. And so that was the beginning of Lauren being a part of this.
Wow, it's incredible.
Yeah.
And she'd never done anything like this.
No. And so, I mean, she's just an amazing woman. So she agreed to do that. She agreed to do the second read-through, and she is not, by choice, a professional actress.
Yeah.
Agrees then to do the summer run. And day by day, as she learns the technique of the thing, she finds new ways to express herself, but just instinctually is so very, very right. Like, she's just a phenomenal actress. And watching her discover the ways in which she can tell this story has been a true joy. But for her to go from, like, teaching the director sign language to making her Broadway debut in 16 months is crazy. And to handle it with such grace and calm at every step of the way, she's one of one.
So let's set it up a little bit. You play James. You've said this is the most challenging thing you've ever done as an actor.
By a long stretch, yeah.
Let's set it up a little bit for the people that didn't grow up with this play.
Okay.
Talk about this guy and sort of where he's at the...
So James is ex-hippie, ex-Peace Corps, heart of gold guy who has gone to school, learned sign language, wants to be a speech therapist because he just wants to do good and be on the right side of things. And in the process of working at this one particular school, meets a woman who's working at the school as well. And initially, in his sort of misguided white knightness, wants to help her, or really force her, to learn to speak, thinking that, she has all of the tools to have a full life, but she's just, by not speaking or lip reading, she's missing this one critical component, and is trying to kind of force that upon her. Through that tension, they fall in love, and they embark on this life together, and it's really the beautiful tragedy of he and she never really being able to accept each other as they are, rather than how they want them to be.
It is sort of a beautiful romance on top of a lot of other things, but what's it been like sort of bringing it back to audiences?
First off, I think people are kind of surprised at how much they allow themselves to laugh, how much funny there is in it, and this is a sign of good writing as well. A lot of the tension is cut through with humor. And I think they're also just, when we nail the last 3 scenes of the play, I think people are really caught off guard by how emotionally destructive the end of this play is. I mean, it really, when we get it right, it will just tear your heart out of your chest.
I love having my heart torn out, so I'm so for this.
I know, it's the perverse reason why we go.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
You go to a play and you're just like, I want you to ruin my night.
Yeah, I want you to reach in, grab my heart, and throw it against the wall at Studio 54.
And stamp on it a couple times. Yeah,
right,
we got
let's
you.
do that. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more Joshua Jackson. We are back with Joshua Jackson, finally on Broadway in Children of a Lesser God. So excited.
After all these many years.
So let's talk more about Lauren Ridloff, who I've had a few interactions with. She's very charming.
She is.
Very beautiful. I love the poster and the artwork. Like, you guys are, I'm sure you're used to doing very intimate photo shoots with actresses, but it looks like your faces are just inches apart. Is that photoshopped, or was it an awkward day of putting your faces just in each other's faces?
Well, that was about halfway through the out of town run last summer, so we're quite used to being in each other's faces at this point. And they may have, I don't know, I don't know which 2 images they used. There were definitely some shots there where you have that funny thing of and hold it.
Right. right.
Hi, so how are the kids? How's your husband?
Right. Make sure your breath smells good.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
all that.
Lots of breath mints.
So I know you just sort of told a story of how she first got involved. What was it like getting to know her? Was it purely through the work? Do you go out of your way to sort of hang out beyond the rehearsal
Well,
room? And
okay, so in the normal course of business, yeah, I think particularly for a leading man and leading lady, it's important to get to know each other, to sort of understand who each other are, especially if you're going to be going into places that are uncomfortable.
Right.
You know, I want you to be able to trust me, and I want to be able to trust you that we're going to go to these places, and that, you know, I won't take it too far, and you can always rely on me to be there. In this case, it was more complicated because I couldn't communicate with her personally. I didn't know her language. So when we got into the rehearsal space, we had interpreters with us in the rehearsal space so we could communicate that way. I was very quickly trying to, I'd done a little, well, not a little bit, I'd done quite a bit of work before I got there, but had a lot more work yet to do, just even to get the language of the play. So we would spend our day in rehearsal, and then I, and Alexandria Wales, who's the ASL director for the show, who's come with us to this production as well, break out another 4 hours and slowly but surely build me into a place where I was like post-toddler in that language set.
Now, how much ASL do you know now?
Okay, so there's actually two different languages. So there's ASL, which is the language of deaf people for deaf people, but I speak, well, technically I speak Pidgin Signed English, but Signed English in the play, which is just our language interpreted or translated directly into Signed English. So I'm conversational, I'm still expanding my vocabulary. So when we get into like really specific things, I still have to ask her to show me the signs. But you know, she and I go out to, when we have 2 show days, we'll go out for dinner in between the 2 shows, just the 2 of us, and we can carry on a conversation easily.
Do you know how to sign shoot the shit?
I guess it would be, shoot the shit. Or just talk shit, I don't know.
So Patrick Stewart, let's talk about that guy. You were on a show called Dawson's Creek. Some people watching this might know that. I think the world knows that. And after that ended, I'm sure it was kind of like, well, you know, everyone was like, what does this mean now for your career?
Right.
That was like a sort of a big moment.
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, you're from the outside or from the inside? Because from the inside, it was more like, I mean, we were there for 6 years, so it was such a long and then ultimately complete experience because we knew that we were going to end when we were going to end it. So there was just this tremendous sense of relief. The panic didn't set in for like a month and a half afterwards of like, oh man, I'm unemployed, what am I going to do? But yeah, the finish of that, I knew within a couple of months that I was going to go and do this Mammoth play with Patrick Stewart.
Life in the theater.
And I wanted the challenge. There was something like a question that I needed to have answered for myself, and that was the way to search for that answer. That was one of those moments in my life. And yeah, to put myself, you know, in Mammoth's language on the West End, a 2-hander with just Patrick Stewart is about the deepest of the deep end that you can possibly go into. Yeah,
moments like that make me really like an actor because it's like you could have done so many easier things, but you were just like, nope.
I'm not that guy.
It's a bold statement. And you went there and you didn't sink.
We did not sink. No, we had I mean, I did have one scathingly bad review, which is of course the only review that I remember, but it was brilliantly bad. I think he compared me, first off he said I was American, which is just factually incorrect. But he said I looked like an American cockroach that had been flipped on its back trying to right itself on stage. That's pretty bad.
Wow.
That's pretty bad.
You really can quote it like that.
I mean, it's only been 17 years. I'm sure I'll forget eventually.
Haunted by that. Okay.
Yeah. Evening Standard. Oh yes, I remember.
By all accounts, it was a success from what
it was,
I've heard.
Other than that guy, yeah, it was a success.
And it put Patrick Stewart in your life, and you say that he really kind of
so
got you to fall back in love with this, or
if I'm to be perfectly honest, I was quite burnt out at the end of Dawson. So there were many satisfying moments through that experience, but there was many unsatisfying moments. And if I could have ended it a couple of years earlier than we did, I would have.
Okay.
And part of the burnout was just doing one character essentially for 6 years, and had forgotten what the joy of the job was, and something was itching in me, which is exactly why I was like, this seems scary and difficult. I'm going to go do this. And it was the process of rehearsing with Patrick, and then the process every night. I mean, he's such a skilled theater actor. If he had wanted to slaughter me on stage and just to showcase his talents, he absolutely could have done that. That was within his power, but he's not that man. He was incredibly gracious in allowing my learning curve, which was very steep for that show, and being helpful where he could, and just setting the parameters like how a good actor does this, and seeing his joy in it, and then discovering my own joy, and it reminded me like, oh right, I'm an actor. This is really truly what I want to do. I love this.
And you've done theater as a kid.
I'd done theater as a kid.
I've heard about your Charlie Bucket. People are still talking about it.
That was, honestly, that show was brilliant.
It was Willy Wonka. Was it Willy Wonka or Charlie and the Chocolate Factory?
It was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Okay.
It was the first time, I think this is true. If it's not, I'm going to make it true for this show.
Let's make it true.
I think it was the first time that it was right before Roald Dahl died. And he gave his blessing because it was a professional show,
wow.
and it was the first time he'd ever said, okay, you can charge people to see this. But it was just a beautiful, crazy, so crazy telling of that story. And I was a kid who was raised on those books, so that was a brilliant time. And then I'd done little workshoppy and smaller things over the years, but like I said, it's really specific experiences in my life, the coming to the theater world. But I have been looking for something to do on Broadway since working with Patrick in the West End, and they brought that show to Broadway, but I couldn't do it because I was working. They brought our production of the Life in the Theater to Broadway.
Oh, Life in the Theater. I thought you meant Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I'm like, yeah,
No.
That was last year,
No,
dude.
no.
You're too old to play. I'm sorry, you're told to play Charlie Bucket. I mean, it would have been fun, but right, yeah, Life in the Theater.
Suddenly,
right.
This is really creepy. No, they brought our production of Life in the Theater here.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do it because I was working, which was heartbreaking.
And T.R. Knight was like, I'll do it.
Yeah, bastard. So I have been looking, and finally, this monumental thing that we're trying to do is how I get here, which is
finally.
great. Yeah.
Dreams come true. You just have to be really, really patient.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna take another break. We'll be right back with more Joshua Jackson. We're back with more Joshua Jackson. Let's talk about another iconic role, the Changeling. That was another important one for you, wasn't it? Wasn't that a big...
Wow, you have done your research. Yes, it was my debut. I was baby in pram. I think I'm probably uncredited in that, but yes, that was the first time I was...
You weren't union.
Probably, yeah, exactly. But yeah, I've been, I guess, technically at this since I was very, very young. My mother was working on the Changeling in Vancouver, and I'm not exactly sure how it is that I ended up in a stroller, but I ended up in a stroller.
Are you actually in the movie?
In the briefest of all possible ways.
Okay, so no real memories of that one.
No. I mean, I think I was 6 months old.
Okay.
Yeah.
So mom sort of brought you to auditions, and it seems like she was in the business.
Right. So single mom. So yeah, I was in her workspace quite a lot.
Yeah.
My mother was a casting director, and like I said, I was in her work environment quite a lot. And her assistant was also a single mom. So her son and I would just hang out in her office after school. That particular thing was being cast during the summer, and so they were looking for two kids to play brothers who were the stars of the movie. There's a flashback sequence in the beginning of the film, and we were just always around. And as they were looking,
Like
the
those
director,
two.
yeah, the director was kind of like, I get all these professional kids and they're too polished. I want it a little bit rough, and so he's like, just bring them in. Apparently, I got the job because at some point I just threw my arm around the other guy because we knew each other so well, and they were like, "Yep, that works. Okay, you're good." And I do remember, however, my first professional day as an actor. I didn't know what a mark was. I didn't know anything.
Right.
So apparently I showed up and they were like, so you're going to go there and you say your lines. I'm like, okay. So I walk up and I looked down at the piece of tape and then I stood up like completely stiff and I said whatever my line was. So I worked for 5 days on that show, and at the end of the 5th day we shot the first scene that we had done together. And I was like, why? Didn't we already do this once? And the director's like, well, you've kind of eased into it now, but that first day you looked like someone had shoved a broomstick up your ass. You were so stiff. So I just thought we should come back and do this again. It's like, oh, okay. Show business. Here we go.
And that was Crooked Hearts, your first film, right?
Yeah.
People can still watch that.
You can find, it is a truly phenomenal cast. It's
Yeah.
like an amazing collection of actors.
Right. When you look at your career, it is incredible that how your career. It's pretty amazing. You've always stayed interesting, and you've always gotten involved in really interesting projects, and you've been working. What's the secret to that? If you had to give advice to someone on some hot teen show right now, it was like, what's going to happen to me? It's really been an interesting path.
Well, if you're on one of those shows, of which there are several right now, I would say care less about being pretty, right? That there's a whole industry built around kind of frivolous external things, which is actually worse now than when I was doing Dawson's, because the social media thing didn't exist yet. And be honest with yourself. What is it that you love about this job? And if you love the part where you're in a scene with another human being and something magical can happen, and a wise voice can give you a little direction, and so an idea that hadn't occurred to you can come out, then take the time, right? Like the gray hairs and the wrinkles are the good stuff, right? Like if you take real joy out of this and you continue to feed it, right? You put everything that you have into it and then it feeds you back, then you'll have as long as you want, I think.
Right. Go call Patrick Stewart and go to London.
Well, yeah, I mean, Patrick's a really good example. I've had several very important actors that I have worked with at very specific moments in my life, where you see, oh, this is how it can be done well over time, and that we all want to be successful and we all want to be have the whole Megillah. But the truth of the matter is that the chasing of that kills a lot of the joy, and if you can be all right with not constantly chasing the bright shiny thing and just finding the things that feed you, and I've certainly been guilty of chasing the bright shiny thing, so I'm not throwing stones from glass houses here. But over the course of time, if you just can keep on coming back to the thing that makes you happy, that thing that feeds you, I think you can do this for a very long time.
I realized that that you will be on Broadway this year for your birthday.
Yes.
And it's a good birthday.
The big 4-0. Yeah.
Big 4-0.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
That is a big one.
So if the Broadway goal was 40, you made it.
Yeah.
Like by 40, I got to get to Broadway.
I didn't put a timeline on it, but it is an excellent birthday present for 40.
So what does turning 40 mean to you?
Well, partially it's that survivor thing. Every year that clicks by is another year that I'm like, I can't believe I still get to tell stories for a living. This is amazing. The transition into 30 was one of the greater reliefs of my life. It's amazing how much easier things got north of 30.
Right.
Like the 20s, for anybody who's in your 20s, enjoy it. It's a ton of fun, and it gets easier, I promise. Because everything is difficult when you're in your 20s. And then, my 30s have been pretty fantastic, so I'm hoping that my 40s will kind of keep that going.
40s, it just keeps getting better, I can tell you.
Okay, good.
So what do you want people to know about this play? It's a really cool play. I feel like a lot of your fans might not know it. I think it's exciting to bring it to a new audience.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people won't know it. So I've had a funny experience describe when people are like, well, what are you doing? Oh, I'm doing a play. What's the play? I'm doing Children of a Lesser God. Every single person that you say the title to goes, oh, I know, I love that. And then I can see the second thought of you have no idea what that's about. It's such a great title that everybody seems to remember the title.
Yeah.
And if you remember the movie, you'll recognize the story, but the telling of the story on stage is completely different.
Yes.
And I hope that people are transported for the 2 hours that they're with us every night. Mm-hmm. And then we rip your heart out, throw it against the wall, and stomp on it at the end.
Please do that. I'll be looking for that. And also, The Affair is also coming back, right?
Yeah,
Season
in June.
4.
Yeah,
that's exciting.
Yeah, we're gonna have a big June.
Yeah, you have a big June.
40, The Affair, shows on Broadway.
Yeah, look at you.
Life's good.
I don't know. Your 40s are going to be good, I think.
I'm off to a good start, barring disaster. Knock on wood.
Well, Children of a Lesser God is at Studio 54, the legendary Studio 54. Thank you so much for coming by.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being on Broadway.
Appreciate
I hope we see more of you on the Broadway stage.
Well, let me get through this one first, and then absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Everyone, check out Children of a Lesser God at Studio 54. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.